All right, we are live and officially happy to welcome everyone to day 2 of the Big Payoff Webinar Summit. We are so excited to have you with us today. I'm Libby Espeland. I work on our sales and marketing team here at Skill Crush, and we are a digital community for women learning to change their careers with tech skills. So I am beyond honored to be moderating a panel today with some truly powerhouse women. I'm here with Get Bullish's Jennifer Dziura, Entrepreneur.com's Linda Lacina, and CodeNewbie's Saron Yitbarek. Everyone wave and say hi so they can all see you.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. We're ready to gear up, guys. So as I said, I'm so happy you're all here with us at the Big Payoff Summit. We've dedicated this summit to diving into all the benefits of a tech career, from money to more time with your family to working from home, or in the case of today's webinar, being your own boss. So maybe you're here because you're ready to strike out on your own and become your own boss, but aren't quite sure where to start or how to negotiate with new clients. Or maybe you're looking for more fulfillment from your job instead of just punching that clock. Or even maybe you're ready to start making more money and figuring out what to do with it. If you fit into any of these categories, you are in the right place. We have got answers for you. And on that note, as I said, we are here today to talk about running your own business. A career in tech gives you that opportunity to be your own boss and go out on your own, but we know it can be a confusing world to navigate. So we'll be talking strategies with each of our experts here today. And now, if you'll bear with me here, just a little bit of housekeeping. And that is that ultimately we want to hear from you. So as you can see, the Facebook comments below this webinar are reserved for you to share any thoughts, any takeaways, any questions you have, and we can't wait to answer them or to cheer you along in the comments. And in fact, go ahead and get started right now. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what you're hoping to learn today. And finally, I have 3 all-access blueprints left to give away as part of our summit. So one for each webinar that's left. These blueprints are worth $14.99 each, and all you need to do to enter is share your favorite takeaways and quotations from the webinars with our hashtag #BigPayoff. So on that note, let's meet our panel. I'll hand it over here. I am so thrilled to have you all here. First up, we have Jennifer Dziura. Jennifer is the founder of Get Bullish, Aggressive Lady Advice. I love that. And the annual Bullish conference. So Jennifer, I'd love if you would take a moment to share a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. You know, I started writing Get Bullish, career and life advice column from a feminist point of view in 2010. And I actually had some notes I had made on the back of an actual napkin. I have a little echo, don't I? Let's try with this.
Is that better, everybody?
There we go. I can hear you.
Great. Well, they're very stylish, but counterproductive. Okay, so what I want to say is that I started writing this column about career and life advice from a feminist perspective in 2010, and I had some notes I had actually made on the back of a napkin, literally a napkin, because it was an airplane. It was not for cliche value. It was called How to Make Money Without Becoming a Republican. And so
I love this.
It's been my life ever since. How to make money without becoming a Republican, finding a money role model that doesn't make you want to barf, you know, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm all about over at getbullish.com, and I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. That's fantastic. and on that note, too, the rest of our panel, we have Linda Lacina joining us, who is the managing editor at entrepreneur.com. So Linda, will you do us the honor and share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Linda, and here at entrepreneur.com, we're a resource for people that are trying to find better in sort of all manners of their lives. And so maybe they're trying to they're trying to run their own business, or more often it's people that are have a passion project or something that they want to push through, and they need help with mindset. They need help with problem solving, and we sort of help detangle some of the complications that are very common to meeting any goal and taking any hill. So that's kind of what we do at Entrepreneur. And anyway, I like to help people solve their problems. So that's what we do.
Hey, well, I'm sure we're going to put that to work today, your skills. And on that note, last but certainly not least, Saron Yitbarek, the founder of CodeNewbie and coined the most supportive community of programmers and people learning to code. She's also the producer of Codeland, the tech conference for new developers, and host of the CodeNewbie podcast. So Saron, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I started CodeNewbie, I think about 3 years ago, as a very, very simple Twitter chat. It was a reaction to my own learning to code process where I felt like I was so alone. My friends didn't really know what coding was or what that world was about. My family didn't know what was going on. And it was just so hard being in your apartment all the time by yourself alone, trying to struggle with the computer and try to hope that it, understands you once in a while. And then finally I went to a boot camp where all of a sudden I had 40 plus people who understood that journey and were with me, and they smiled when, with me when things worked, and they cried with me when it didn't work. And it was just so different going through something so hard like that with a community. And I wanted to bring that opportunity to more people. So we started as a Twitter chat, and then we grew from that and added a podcast. Now we actually do 2 Twitter chats a week. We have the conference that you mentioned. We have meetup groups. So it's all about finding different ways to provide community and support for people who are learning to code.
That's fantastic. And something that I know we value highly here at Skill Crush. And so it is that mentality of having a community, having a network, just having that support system built in and ready to go. So that's fantastic. Perfect. Well, as everybody can see, we have, I'm not kidding when I said it was a powerhouse lineup of fabulous women here today, but we are diving right in on being a business owner. So maybe that means for you, you'd like to become a solopreneur, like a freelance developer or a designer, or as a boss with a team potentially reporting to you. So on that note, we're going to dive right into questions, but don't forget to start asking your questions and sharing your takeaways in the comments. And at the end of this webinar, we will have some time dedicated just to asking your questions of our panel. So start putting them in the Facebook comments now. And on that note, let's dive right in. So first up, first question, Linda, I would love to start with you. I want to start with a question about setting up a business, ultimately what we're here to talk about today. So say you're not 100% ready to go out on your own and want to start a side hustle, but you'd like to keep your day job. Where would you recommend getting started?
Well, I think there's a couple things you can do. One thing is just look at your time, right? So you can schedule time to work on it. Do you have the time to really put this forth? Is this a hobby that you'd like to do? Is this something that you really feel like you want to do some soul searching? Is this something that you want to be doing for more than a year, more than a month? Is this something you could see yourself doing 5 years, 6 years? And then once you do that, once you sort of carve out your time, be good to yourself. Find times when you know that you're going to be able to not be fighting with yourself. If you work better with creative projects in the morning, then you carve out that time. If weekends are better, then do that. And then I think that what's really important from that, you'll have tested with yourself how interested you are in that, and you can continue to build on that project. And then from there, you can use that to see, okay, if you're getting a little bit of success, if you're getting a little bit of a market, then you can expand on it and reach out to maybe other people to say, okay, maybe I'm at the step now where I need maybe someone to give me a little bit of advice on, see if I have an online site, how do I make sure that you've got the right legal representation, getting a startup lawyer to kind of give you some very basic advice to make sure that you're doing some stuff from the outside correctly, making sure that you're being smart about things. I think that the very, very most important steps at the outset, though, really have to do with time. They have to do with, like, how are you going to give yourself the time to work on it and solve the problems? Because you're a solo entrepreneur, so you are the one that is sort of doling out all the tasks. And so giving yourself, managing your energy and making sure that you're giving yourself the time to finish those tasks.
Yeah, I love that answer. And I think something that I know I've certainly struggled with, and I see this from some of our students that write into us too, or have big grand dreams of changing their life with tech skills. They struggle with setting the boundaries in place make sure that they have that opportunity to make time for something like this. So, and feel free, anybody, to weigh in on this. But I'm interested to hear, like, how do you structure boundaries for yourself?
Well, I mean, so I'll start, and I'm sure that you other ladies have very, very great ideas on this, right? But I think that one thing that's really, really important is to be really, really, really vigilant with your time. So you have to be really realistic. So if you know that, hey, yeah, I've got the weekends free, but not really, because really Sundays are chore days, and you're running around. So give yourself a break. And don't make Sunday the day that you try to think that you're going to get work done. Don't do that, right? Maybe there are times during, maybe when you come home, that activity in your house is quiet. It's right before dinner. Maybe everyone else is distracted. Well, maybe you still have energy there, and you don't have energy at 10 o'clock. Right? So maybe that's a strategic way you can sort of look at your time. But I think it's to rethink that and be really creative about your energy. And there's enough to fight. Most entrepreneurs, most businesses, it is true that half fail. And so give yourself every shot, right? Don't fight yourself, and don't fight reality. So I think that would be really important. There's a lot of other tips you can do, where it's like, logging your time, so you can really understand how much time you're taking for certain tasks, and get a really, really good understanding for, are you getting lost? Are you getting distracted? Are you losing focus? But I think that that's really, really important. Just being good to yourself, and, not thinking that you can do more than is possible.
Yeah. And go ahead, Jennifer. I was going to say I had two thoughts on that too. I think one is a little more existential and the other is more practical. One, in terms of the strategies and in terms of the practical stuff, is trying out a lot of different tools. So for me, like at one point I used to do the bullet journal, and then I did like a modified version of that was for my needs. And then I realized that I was being really hard on myself, and I was so focused on all my losses and not focused on my wins. So then I created something called a win wall, where I just have this huge sticky note on my wall, and every time I do like even a minor accomplishment, I'll write it on, and I'll just look at it and go like, okay, like progress is being made, Now my thing is like writing my to-do list on index cards, because on index cards, it just feels less intimidating than writing in a notebook. So for me, it's been about just trying different strategies and understanding that my needs will change based on my mood that day, the project I'm working on, that kind of thing. So I think, if the bullet journal doesn't work for you, don't do it. Or if it works for a month and you have to switch, that's fine. So I think trying different things is really important. But the second more existential thing, which is something that you also kind of touched on a bit, is if it's really, really hard and all these strategies and tools don't work, maybe there's a deeper reason why it's not working. Maybe that's not really the thing you're passionate about. Maybe it seemed like a good idea in your head, but once you executed on it, you realize that running a class is really all about teaching, and you actually hate teaching. You just like the idea of running a class. So, kind of figuring out, if it's really, really a struggle, and you can't find, there's like not finding time, and there's also like not finding time. What are maybe some deeper reasons why it's so hard for you to get disciplined and get in shape and take those next steps?
Right. We certainly make an attempt to make time for the things that are most important to us. I do love that. And you did go into detail on your other methods, but for anybody that's not currently aware of what it is, will you explain the bullet journal to us?
Sure. So the bullet journal, it's I think they call it an analog system for to-dos, which basically means you just write it in a notebook. But the idea is you get this note, there's like a special notebook for it, but you don't need to use it. You just have a regular notebook, and there's like little symbols you use. So I think like a dot is a to-do item. An X is like an idea. I'm getting all these wrong, I'm sure. Like an exclamation point is an action. So basically it's a way to organize your thoughts, but also be very fluid with it. So, throughout the course of a day, you'll have a thing you want to do, an idea you've had, something you want to keep track of, and it's supposed to be a system to help you do that. And I've heard awesome things about it. For me, it kind of worked, and then I did my own thing, and now I don't really use it too much.
Yeah, I love that idea of cycling through things. And it may not be that you found one thing right away that makes everything fall into place. It may be that you have to try a few different things. So Jennifer, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I know you have some great pointers to add.
I've been taking notes. So to get back to the original question about side hustles, if you're in a situation where you have a day job, you're trying to run a side hustle, the one thing I would recommend that you not do is try to hide that from people and make up like really bad excuses why you can't do a business call at 2 p.m. because you're at your other job, or like go out in the hall and try to secretly do a business call. That is not going to work. So you need to turn that into an advantage, or just design a side hustle that works with that. So for instance, anything where you're giving lessons to professionals, for instance, is going to take place evenings and weekends. There are lots of things you can do that are side hustles hustles that only take place evenings and weekends, or even less often than that, like event-based side hustles, like you run a boot camp or you run an event or a dating party, I don't know, whatever the kids are doing these days, but it happens like once a month, for instance, or it's a summer camp or whatever. So there are lots of ways that you can do something that's specifically scheduled for times that you can do it, or you can kind of turn it into an advantage, like I'm the night coder, I code while you sleep, you wake up and it's all done. I got a very successful pitch like that from a virtual assistant in Australia who worked for me for about 2 years. And she was like, hey, you know, I would love to, you know, I read in an article that your previous virtual assistant has moved on. I would love to work for you. Here are my skills. By the way, I'm in Australia. You'll never meet me. You'll wake up and all your work will be done.
Wow,
and I was like,
that's awesome.
That's a pitch. I like that.
I'm excited.
It was sometimes inconvenient that we couldn't talk during my workday, but she really spun it as a positive and it worked. So those are some pieces of advice that I would recommend for the side hustle thing. I would also say, in terms of setting boundaries, I mean, I like what the comment about, you know, like sometimes Sunday is chore day and you really don't want to take it over with your side hustle. But I don't know, maybe find a side hustle that you do want to put your chores aside for. And I find that most people are much happier with a side hustle that is not like exactly the same as their day job. Like if you are working in public relations and you're like doing your own PR clients on the side, that is a disaster waiting to happen. You know, like you want a side hustle that's substantially different, not just in terms of what you're providing, but maybe like one thing is where you're on your feet and one thing's at a computer, like actually something that's even physically different. So you'll have the energy to do it. Because I like doing things that I don't need to set boundaries around. You know, like a lot of advice about giving boundaries, like say no more often and like, you know, make them come to you. Like that's advice given by people who are already very wealthy and successful. Like if you marry on a Huffington, you can say no to anything you want. You know, if you need money to pay the rent, you really can't. So there's that.
Thank you. Sorry, I got about that. That like makes me so angry. But can we do it like a quick tangent? Okay, so you know how like you know the whole like anti-workaholism conversations that are happening, like I get it, I totally understand, and I'm a very privileged person who doesn't have kids or responsibilities or anything, so I can afford to be workaholic. But part of being a workaholic isn't like, oh, I just like work. Part of it is like, no, I need to do this to get ahead because there are systems in place that are keeping me down. Like it's not like this choice where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna like stop working at 5 because oh, like I have a dog and like I just like dogs and like obviously I'm gonna spend 8 hours. Like it's not about that. Like it's about people aren't going to take me as seriously as they might take someone who doesn't look like me because of certain things. And therefore I need to work twice as hard, be so much louder, travel everywhere to get, like to even get anything. So this idea that the workaholism conversation being just about work is just so wrong and so not true. And some of us can't afford to just work from 9 to 5. So
I think we're going to be new BFFs about it. One of the first articles I ever wrote was called "Maybe Work-Life Balance Means You Should Work More." And yeah, you know, it's not for everyone all the time, but you know, I really appreciate your perspective on this. My perspective on it was, you know, in my 20s when I was unencumbered and full of energy and so on and so forth, you know, I worked a ridiculous amount and I sacrificed my health for like a healthy 27-year-old, so it was totally fine. Like, oh, I didn't sleep the year that I was 27 and like, you know, who cares? So I really burned the candle at both ends. Nothing bad happened. And now I have a 6-month-old baby. You know, like I benefit from what I did in my 20s every day. The same way if you work your ass off in high school instead of going to all those parties, like you're going to do better in the rest of your life. It's like your 20s are the high school for the rest of your life, you know? And so I really think, you know, not that I want to contribute to some kind of neoliberal nightmare where we all work all the time for corporations. I don't want that. But I think if there's ever going to be a time in your life that you're going to want to work less, like maybe when you have kids or if you get sick or anything bad happens or you have to flee the country for a variety of reasons, if there's ever a time that you're going to be kind of knocked down a little bit, then if you have the ability to really kick it up a couple notches right now, then it's a good investment in your future if you can.
Well, just to build on what you're saying, I think you have to make a decision when you're testing it out, the side hustle. Is it something that you just want to kind of get some money, it's a little bit of pin money, or is this something you're trying to build into something that's going to transform your life? Which is it, right? Because if it is something you want to transform your life, then the point about, hey, you're going to need to kind of invest some time and energy in that is very, very true, because as a boss of a company that you would like to be very successful and have lots of employees, those worries don't go away. They don't disappear because you got successful. You just get different, more complicated problems. So I think it's an interesting point, because I think you have to decide early on, what is it that you want? Because if you do want the big pie, then that takes that's a sacrifice, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought up that point too, because I think it starts with that pure honesty right from the get-go of what is the purpose behind what I'm doing here and what am I setting out to accomplish. And you might not have all of those answers. And I think most of us, when we're first getting started, don't have all of those answers, but having that perception that I can go, I can try something, but this is to fuel this greater purpose. And this is the key thing that I'm working toward. I love the tangent we went off onto. So this is fabulous. And one more follow-up question to that. So a lot of our viewers here at Skill Crush are parents. So they are juggling learning tech skills. They are potentially juggling a full-time job and then also full-time family. So in that instance, I don't want to say that anybody is busier than anybody else, but I know we're saying if we don't have maybe kids or family to tie certain aspects down, what recommendations would you have for somebody that maybe doesn't have as much flexibility in their day-to-day? And I think I'm probably doing a mass under or an overgeneralization of how much time they probably really do have, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts around that.
Sure. I think, so here's the thing. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, and I run a company, and that's exciting. It's not so much a question of time. I mean, like, for instance, like my biggest blocks of free time, like if someone wants something from me, when I'm available? Friday and Saturday night. I'm available for like 8 hours in a row. Business things don't happen then, but I'm available. So it's not so much time, it's concentration. I have a very hard time getting the amount. I mean, when I was, I used to live by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment with like 2 feet from an espresso machine. I could concentrate for 20 hours in a row sometimes, and I don't have that now. And so to me, it's not a question of time so much as how valuable is that time? How broken up is that time? So if you're in a position where you don't have dependents or like annoying roommates or, so on and so forth, like you have the ability to concentrate, oh my God, make a big thing. I don't care if it's like you're writing a book, you're coding an app, I don't care what it is, but make a large thing. Don't spend all day in your email. Mm-hmm. And so, when you don't have that ability to concentrate, which right now it's very hard for me to get, I can answer emails all day because I can do it, you don't need that level of concentration. I can go to networking events. I can do events like this. I run my own webinars. I run my own conference. I run events. I can make products. I can sell products. I can do all those things, but I'm not going to write a book at this stage in my life. And I wish I had written one 5 years ago. So that to me is the thing. It's not time, it's concentration. And if you have the ability to sit down and concentrate, even if you have no money and no resources and nobody knows who you are, you have an immense resource there that you can really monetize and use to get what you want.
I love that answer. Anybody else wanting to weigh in?
One thing you can do is there's others like you. You're not alone. I guess so this could be a continuing theme of how I'm going to be chatting about, but like there's other entrepreneurs, other people just like you who are balancing all the things that you're doing. And so I would pick their brain. What are their solutions? There's going to be things that you can't think of, and you don't have to think of them by yourself. Maybe there's a way that you can share daycare or childcare, or maybe there's some kind of a sort of solution that you haven't even imagined in your community that would be amazing and help you steal a little bit of time, right? Something creative that you don't know about. So I think that probably the best resource really is other entrepreneurs like you in your particular situation, and in the absence of that, in the short term, because you still need to get those people, so you still need to befriend those people. But I think that in the absence of that, I would look for stories of entrepreneurs who sort of talk about the past, talk about when they were building their companies, because they'll reveal, oh gosh, here's how we did this. Here was my solution for X or Y, and it can be really, really helpful. I really would look for.
Okay, good deal. This seems like a minor outage here in our Hangout. Okay. Sorry, you broke up just at the tail end of that, Linda. That was perfect.
I went away and then you guys are back. I didn't touch anything, I promise. You saw me. I didn't touch anything.
Exactly. Who's holding the Google Hangout button today? No, I think that's perfect. And I love that we weighed in on that, because I know that that's a big struggle point for a lot of our students, if they're considering even getting started learning tech skills. And oftentimes we talk about this a ton, but that feeling of feeling like you're constantly behind. And so just knowing that it doesn't mean, okay, because you have a family, or because you don't, or because you work 80 hours at your full-time 9-to-5 job, that doesn't mean that you have any less of an opportunity to make something for yourself and make this happen. So on that note, I would love kind of continuing our side gig idea here. So at what point is it okay to think about quitting your 9-to-5 or replacing it with your side hustle?
Sure, I can take that one. So for me, it's interesting. When I decided to quit Microsoft last year to do CodeNewbie full time, everyone said, "Oh wow, like it must be like really taking off for you to make such a big leap, and oh, like there must be like great things happening to CodeNewbie." And I was like, no, not really. It's just simply that with a full time job and the amount of work CodeNewbie took up, I was always going to stay at the same level unless I took a leap. Like you get to this point where it's all about keeping up the existing momentum and just, like maintaining that. I felt like CodeNewbie became this maintenance project, and there was no creative room. There was no time to concentrate. There was nothing to take me to allow me to go, oh, like that big project that I really want to do, I'm going to actually carve out time and energy to think through that and troubleshoot that. And I just didn't have the mental space for it. So I felt like the things that were working well enough that if I didn't take a leap and use that to try out these new projects, new ideas, then it was always going to be like this nice little side project that I kind of did. And it was never going to be like the big thing that I want it to be. So for me, it wasn't so much about, we raise a ton of money or, it like kicked off. It was the fact that for me, it just wasn't going to kick off because it was just me and it was just a lot of work to maintain it as it was with the time that I had.
I think also to sort of add a little bit to that, I think that you really do have to sort of it helps to sort of look at your finances. It's something that we'll always sort of suggest. Do you know what you need to cover? Have you looked at that? Right? There's always a power and there's a drama to the leap. We see stories every day of people who are like, and I just jumped, right? Which is awesome and it's powerful and it's passionate and there's all it's very exciting, right? Entrepreneurship is an adventure, right? But it's also like a straight up business. You're literally running a business, right? You're not in a movie. You're not a character in a movie. So you really do need to sort of sit there and look at your finances. Is the business viable? Did you test it? Did you use your side hustle time wisely to sort of test it? Do you have a market? Do you think it's going to grow? Right? Do you have signs that you think it's going to grow? And how many clients do you have? If somebody called you tomorrow, the day after you quit your job, do you think you'd be okay? Do you think you'd be able to sort of, get other business or whatever, or work it out, get a recurring form of income that could handle that, right? So do you have your finances in order? I think that's really, really important because you don't want to put energy that you should be putting into your business into just worrying about how you're going to pay your phone bill. That's crazy time. Again, talk to other side hustlers and other local entrepreneurs because they will share and help you avoid all the landmines that they made, right? Because it's all about, because they want to help. They want to pay it forward. People are really, really helpful. And I think too, like I really would at this point, if you're really leaving it, I think you probably should sort of reach out to some professionals. Reach out to your accountant, because you should have one by now if you're going to be quitting your job, right? So you reach out to your accountant and say, look, what do you think about this? And if this guy leaves, right? What if my what ifs, right? If the worst happens, what do you suggest? What do I need to do? How do I need to pivot? And then you can start thinking so that you're ready for any scenario because you're going to have to be. That's going to happen.
If I may, I feel like there's a little bit of an elephant in the room on this issue as well, in terms of like, when are you going to leave your job? In the sense that a very large percentage of people women who have their own solo practices have a partner who pays the bills. I mean, don't deny that. Like, if you are a single lady and you are paying your own bills and you need to survive, like, you cannot compare yourself to some woman who's like, oh, I was so brave. I just left my job with all the benefits and it was fine. Yeah, it was fine because you are married to someone with a good job. Like, and a lot of people, they kind of hide that. They want to be like, no, it was all me. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. And it's like, your business made $500 last month and you live in a very nice house. So, nothing wrong with living that way, but when people present that as their own, like, just something that they just up and did, it's like, you don't want to, lead people into traffic there. So, there's something to be said about, like, yes, be brave, like, go for it. But also a lot of people who do that have other sources of income. They have a spouse or everyone in their family is rich or whatever. People have other resources. And if you don't, you got to think about that a little bit differently. I would also say, like, if you start your business as a side hustle and I mean, how well is that going? Like you can graph how much revenue it is making. Like you can make a chart of all the revenue that you are making, and try presenting it to a neutral party, like I don't know, some uncle you haven't seen in a while, just like a neutral party, and you're like, this is the chart of the money I make with my side hustle. I feel like in 3 months I'll have enough money from my side hustle that I could quit my job. And then your uncle's like, yeah, but don't you have a slow season? And present it to a neutral party, see if it seems like financially a good idea. And honestly, if you're kind of lazy about your side hustle, like, I don't know, quitting your main job might not solve that problem. So I would be a little bit cautious about that. You can max out. We have the technology. Like you can max out a side hustle like you wouldn't even know. So I would caution a little caution.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can we talk about relationships for a second? Because I think you bring up some really good points, and I wish that I wish I brought them up myself. I think relationships are everything. Like I think it was Sheryl Sandberg. Well, that was the first person who I heard say that your life partner is the biggest business decision you'll ever make. And I think that is so, so true. And I think what's a huge, huge part of my success, my ability to quit my job last year, is the fact that my husband and I are very much on the same page about money. We're both super frugal, which is a nice way of saying we are cheap as hell. And we have like very, very similar financial goals. And we saved, 70% of our paycheck for a very, very long time. So that by the time like I didn't have a steady income and I was going to make that jump, it wasn't this huge risky decision where like, oh my God, next month I'm screwed. It was no, like we've prepared for this. We've spent years really prioritizing and figuring out what's important for us, what makes us happy, where, knowing where our money was and where it's going to take us and how long it was going to last, so that when it came to like, should I quit my job or not, the question wasn't, could we survive or not? The question was, will quitting make CodeNewbie more likely to succeed? Yes or no? And it was that simple. And that's because I have a really good partner. That's because we're both incredibly financially responsible. And that's because we prioritize the same goal and we're both working towards that. So I think relationships are a huge, huge important part of that.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, obviously you want to be on the same financial page with someone that you're coupled up with. But I also think, for those people in opposite sex relationships, the patriarchy, if you will, or just the messages we've absorbed about gender for a really long time can really get in there. And specifically, I would like to talk about a lot of women will start their own business, be a freelancer, be a solopreneur. And, you have this job that's so flexible, but oftentimes doesn't make enough money to really, what I'm saying is that sometimes goes well, but then sometimes your partner doesn't think it's a quote unquote real job, or it's time to move for his job and your job isn't making enough money to make an argument against it. Like he's paying all the bills because you're just, your job is so flexible but doesn't make any money, that you end up moving for his job. Or if you have kids, everything's out the window. I mean, if you have kids, you're at that point where, your partner might have a traditional job. You have this really great, freelance practice, but it doesn't make enough money to support a family. So all of a sudden you're the one doing all the childcare until your business takes off. Then you'll get some childcare, but it's a chicken and an egg problem. Now you don't have enough childcare to ramp up your business to make money to pay for childcare. Yeah. So flexibility is great, but you don't want to get flexed into non-existence. You don't want your job to be so flexible it is not a job. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's the counterpoint to that. Whether your partner is great or whether your partner is like a little not on the team, nevertheless, you want to make sure that you have revenue coming in and you're not like playing at business, and that if this is important to you, that your career remains as important as your partner's career. And that could be financially, that could be in some rules that you set with your partner, but it's just real easy for you to start a solo practice and end up with nothing if you are not careful, because patriarchy, yes, and other things. And business is hard. I mean, just all those things.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the points we've made here. I'm like, oh, there are so many gears turning, but questions that I want to ask. And I'd actually love to play up on that idea of relationships, but then also this idea of like a stigma around things too. So we'll go relationships route first here. So relationships wise, I think, Saron, exactly what you said. I think that probably speaks to a lot of us here that are viewing, and I feel like I'm so glad you shared your story, because I think that's a very fortunate position to be in. And I think that's fabulous. That has certainly set you up. And we've talked about this already, this idea of having community, and that person is that community aspect for you as well. It isn't just who you're learning from, it's who you're partnering with and making decisions with about your life. But on top of that, you know, taking relationships one step further, as you start to build your own business, it's just as important to build relationships with the people you are serving. And I think in this instance too, how do you go about making sure that you're building relationships that are then going to support you? So all around this idea of getting paid what you're worth, but maybe even negotiating. You know, I think the idea of negotiation within a job setting is totally different, obviously, than negotiating in your own independent business. And when it's you the buck stops with you, when it's you at the end of the day that's making those decisions. So I'd love to hear some thoughts on that.
I think this was the question I suggested, so I will.
Yeah.
I will jump in on that. I don't mean to monopolize, but yeah, so here's my big piece about negotiation. There's a lot of negotiation advice out there, a lot of it specifically oriented towards women, and most of it is really organized around the idea that you're in a full-time job and you are going to request more salary at your full-time job. And if you don't get that, maybe you could request some more vacation days or something like that. And that is the situation a lot of people are in, but that's by no means the entire world of negotiation. Because in that type of negotiation, so much is already set. Like, your job has a lot of you and you only have one of them, so the balance of power is already against you. Your job knows you need their money to survive, unless you don't, but you probably do. So the balance of power is so far against you. Sure, like, if you left, it would be hard to replace you, but, it would probably be harder for you to get another job, or maybe it wouldn't. Anyway, what I'm saying is that there's a lot that's already determined before you get into that room. And that's why you're in a situation where you're like, I would like to keep doing the same job, but maybe a little bit more for this much more money. And it's never like that much more money. I mean, what's the biggest raise you've ever heard of anyone getting in a full-time job? Like 25% maybe would be a huge raise in a full-time job. You don't hear someone like, I asked my boss for a raise and I tripled my income. That's not a thing. Right. So if you're in the freelance world or you're running your own business, that totally can be a thing. I mean, you have a much more standard deviation. And so when you are in a freelance situation, you're running your own ship, I think the most important thing is that you don't get yourself in a situation where you're dependent on one client in the same way that people are dependent on a boss. You want to be in a situation where you're so in demand, you are looking for new clients even when you don't need them. You have a wait list. Like, everyone knows who you are. People want the opportunity to work with you. These are high and mighty goals, but you want to be moving in that direction, that you have so much demand that you can play clients off each other, only take the best assignments. You can fire your bottom 20% of clients and just say, I don't do this anymore, send them off to a beginner, give those clients to someone else who wants them, and move on. So you want to create a situation for yourself where you're kind of at a hub of demand. And so you don't have to be a jerk about it. It doesn't have to be like, well, this client's going to pay me more. But, you can be in a situation where you're like, my schedule's really full, and next client you take on is just, the best client in the world for you. Mm-hmm. So negotiation is so much easier when you can genuinely walk away. Like, you're not bluffing. You're like, well, I'm going to leave this job if it doesn't go the way I want. Like, no, like, you genuinely don't need this client. You can genuinely walk away. And when you have a lot of demand, so there's no fear there. There's no fear that you're not going to be able to pay your rent. That's how you become a good negotiator. It's not like going to 100 negotiating classes and memorizing talking points. It's like, you don't actually need anything.
Oh, I love that. That makes it actually seem so simple and so less scary when you put it in those terms.
One other thing I wanted to add to that. So my business is mostly sponsorship. So I'm working with companies to hopefully give me money. And one thing that I learned is when I first started negotiating and asking for sponsorships, it was a very adversarial relationship where I would go like, I'm trying to get as much money from you and give you as little back. Like, that's how I approached it. Because in my mind, growing up, business was this evil thing that was done by people who didn't care about anyone and were, old and basically Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock is my idea of business people. And so I'm thinking you're one of those evil people who doesn't care about me and you're just trying to get stuff from me. So I'm going to take all your money and give you nothing back. That's how I approached it. And that was not a healthy thing to do. Don't think of it that way. But what I learned after having a couple sponsors and actually working with people is it was never me against the company. And it was much more healthy when I transitioned it in my head to me and this person I'm working with trying to accomplish a goal. And it took a really long time for me to get there, but it was so much easier and I was so much more impactful because then it became hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Hopefully we're in this relationship because you respect that, you understand my goals, what I'm trying to do, you want to work with me because you support that mission and you want to see me succeed. And it's not even you, it's like your company has this, budget that we're trying to tap into. How can you and I together access that budget? And when the sponsorship became like this external thing, this external goal that we were both working towards, I was able to get, a lot more and just be happier and not like always worry about being taken advantage of. Like it just became a healthier conversation and a more productive conversation than me thinking that individual person was like against me and I was trying to take because it's not really their money. Like they don't give a crap about the money. Like it's not theirs, right? Like they have a salary, that's basically it. They have, metrics and things and they want to succeed in their own way, but it's not their money. So when it became us working towards that became, can you see my hands, by the way? Us working towards that. Okay. That became much, much more productive than the way I was thinking about it.
To build on that, I think that making sure that you concentrate on the project, right? Where it's not about this project, it's about the 5 projects that you want to do like down the line with that person. And so if someone says, hey, like, what if we took this away or what if we took that away? It's like, you want to be able to tell them, look, I want to do X. I want, when this thing launches, I want this to be amazing, right? And this is what they're going to want too, because they have bosses and they have whatever. And so everyone wants this to be a success. And I think it's about sometimes educating the person that you're working with to say, hey, this is what we can do for this, right? And helping them understand that it's in their best interest to make it as successful as possible. I think also just about money. So money, people in general don't talk enough about it, and so it becomes a weird thing. And I think that sometimes where women get weird, they go sideways on the salary conversation, is women think, oh, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of fuzz and a lot of stuff that comes through. You think, oh, well, I don't know that job yet, or I'm not there yet to ask for this or that. And that's why women usually lose out on the salary thing. And there's all kinds of studies, you've probably all read them, about how women, won't ask for as much as a man, even if she has more experience. She'll wait till she thinks she has enough to sort of go for a certain job or a certain salary level. And I think the same thing can happen in the freelance world when you're pitching. You think, oh, well, I'm not available for, I'm not good enough to ask for X or Y. So stop that. You shouldn't do that. You should research what the market is. That's what you should do. And then you should be educated on what product that you're giving. Right? I think you should always price yourself to what you're worth, but I don't think that you should put so much fuzz in where you think, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough yet. I haven't been in the business for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. I think stop all those things. I think that doesn't help. And I think once you start getting in your own way with that sort of thing, and you really are researched and you know what you're worth and you know where your work stands up, and you can have an intelligent conversation with someone, again, you're educating them. You say, look, I'm giving you X, Y, and Z. The other guy that you're going to go to, he doesn't give you half of that. His people aren't half as trained, or their product isn't whatever, half as nice. And you're going to be that more persuasive. But it comes down to, you knowing your worth, and that's not about having pluck. Right? That's not about being sassy and being like, I'm worth, I'm worth $1 million. No, it's literally about like sort of understanding your market and being so good that they can't do anything but give you what you ask for.
Yes, totally agree. Mm-hmm.
If I may jump in here, there might be a lot of people here who are on the beginner side. So I would just like to say, like, a really classic way to price your services as a freelancer is figure out what you would be making in an equivalent full-time job, or what you do make, and figure out per hour. So just divide by 52 and divide by 40, figure out your per hour rate and then double that. Because you're going to be handling your own taxes as a freelancer. You have to take time to market and advertise, and there's just a lot of administrative BS that you wouldn't do if you're in a full-time job. So it's just a really classic way to go. Not saying you can't do better than that, but if you make $20 an hour at a full-time job, you absolutely cannot charge $20 an hour as a freelancer. You need to make that 40. One other concept I'd like to add that I think really sometimes is missed by even much more experienced freelancers and solopreneurs is what profit is. Profit. Like, people talk about, like, oh, get paid for your labor, get paid for your time, but like, profit is not money you make for doing work. Profit is more money on top of that. That's just profit. That's what it is. So if you were, for instance, the boss employing someone else to do the work, like, you would charge the client a certain amount of money, and you would pay some of that to the person doing the work, and then some of it would have to go to insurance and taxes and advertising and other stuff. maybe an office, rent, so on and so forth. And then you ideally have more money and you would just keep it because you're the owner of the business and that's why you do it. So like that's profit. So sometimes I have people tell me, they're like, yeah, I started this side hustle, and that's embarrassing. Sometimes I'm popular. I'm so popular. So sometimes I have people say like, oh, they started this side hustle and they made $20,000 in profit last year. And I'm like, oh, profit. Like you didn't do anything for that? Like that was in addition? Like, no, what they mean is they just made $20,000 by working, which is great. It's totally fine. Most people want their side hustle to make $20,000 in addition to their job. But profit is actually money on top of that. And so when you're building a contract, you might say like, all right, so in my internal metrics, I'm not necessarily sharing with the client, are that my labor is worth $60 an hour and it's going to take this many hours. And I'm going to build in some margin because these people sound like they might change their minds a lot. So build in some extra. By the way, build in your consultations. You charge for consultation time, the time that you're on the phone and the client's like, I wanted it to be blue. And you're like, you should have told me that a month ago. Right? Like you have to charge for that. So build the consultations in, like you get paid for that. So, you're going to spend 10 hours making this. You're going to have a half-hour consultation, so on and so forth. So, and then you maybe add a little bit of margin. When you're doing that in your own internal metrics, like you're deciding what to charge for something, keep in mind, you want to make a profit. Like in addition to paying yourself, however many dollars an hour for your time, there should be like some extra, and that's profit, and that's what you have when you have a company. So I apologize if anyone's like, obviously that's what profit is, but I feel like it really gets lost sometimes.
Well, no, I think it's really, really important because even like, so what I do is, I don't really have like costs. Like I guess I have like hosting costs and stuff, but they're pretty minimal. I mean, for me, my cost is just my time, and it's really hard to, and it's really hard to kind of figure out like how much is my time worth if I'm doing like emails versus, coding versus just, doing a lot of meetings. Like, how do I even quantify that? So I think having that conversation about like, what is revenue? What just the very basics when it comes to jobs that don't have hard costs, the way that like a store would have hard costs, I think that's super important.
Well, and I'd like to sort of add also to the profit conversation. When profit is a charged word, and so it seems like I just care about money, because we all think of an 80s movie when we hear the word profit. It sounds very, very crazy. We think glass skyscrapers, and men in bad, very, very weird collars, gecko situation. Exactly. And so I think that what's really important to think about with profit, it's like you need profit to feed the business, right? You want to hopefully reinvest that in the business or have a cushion so that if there's a rainy day or if there's something horrible happens, that you can keep surviving. So the profit isn't about greed. The profit is about the survival of you in the business, right? And so you need that. And sometimes people, especially, and I think women do this, women feel like there's some sort of nobility in being poor. And it's I don't know that that's something that's true. So you shouldn't say, oh, well, I don't need to make a profit on that, or I feel bad charging more for my, for my services or something. I think that you shouldn't feel like your business shouldn't be healthy and nourished, and I think that you have to think about it that way. And it has nothing to do with greed. Separate any of those ideas from this, that it's about what would you do best for your business. You're basically raising like a child, a person, a healthy thing that's going to live on its own. So why wouldn't you give it its best bet for success,
Yes, I think that in my mind, when I started equating profit or just, like being a business person to being sustainable, that was super helpful because everyone wants to be sustainable, right? We want to be healthy and nourished and all that. So, when I would talk to people, it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to make a ton of money or, oh, I'm trying to be super profitable. It was, no, I'm trying to have a sustainable business. Mm-hmm. And everyone understands that. Like everyone gets that that is an important thing, especially, like in the tech community, we're always talking about burnout and work-life balance. Like sustainable is like a totally okay word. So that's been really helpful in just communicating the importance of making money to other people who may be like, well, why do you need to make money? Because I need to be sustainable. The other point I wanted to make is about going back to the negotiation question, specifically for beginners. One thing that was really helpful for me, again, I'm like more working with sponsors, so this might be different depending on the business type that you have. One thing that was really helpful for me is, when I worked in startups for a number of years doing like sales and stuff. And I feel like in startups, your job is to make yourself way bigger and more important than you really are. So, you use like we, even if it's just you, it's a habit I'm still trying to get over. But, it's a lot of just trying to make yourself seem like really, really important and really, really powerful. And I didn't like that. It always felt really kind of awkward and fake. And what I tried, which was really helpful, is when I left Microsoft and I started working full time on CodeNewbie, instead of trying to say like, oh yeah, I've been doing CodeNewbie for millions of years, this is huge. Instead, I would say, yeah, I just took a really big leap. It's a really big step for me. I'm super excited. I really want this to be successful. And when I kind of like leverage the beginner card in a way, that actually got people on my side, because now it was like, oh my God, like we want you to succeed. This is a big step. Holy crap, that's so amazing for you. What can we do to get you there? And so I use that in conversations to just get information. So I would say, I'm thinking, in about a year, I want to do this conference, and I would love to be able to work with a company like yours at some point. How could we possibly do that? Like, what does that even look like? And turning it not so much into me asking you for a sponsorship and me asking you for information on how your company works, and how we might be able to have a relationship sometime down the line. And I got a lot of really, really great inside information. I got hard numbers. I got exact benefits. I was able to connect with people in a way that I don't think they would have told me if I was like, I'm an awesome person. Look at my awesome conference. You totally want to be a part of this. So it was really, really helpful. And then a couple months later, when I actually did have an ask, I could go back to that person and say, hey, remember that conversation we had? I was taking notes. I remember these are things you told me you cared about. Here are the numbers you said you're okay with. Based on that, here's my prospectus. Here's a package I made just for you. Is this something that, you think you could support? Because you already said that you would support it, because we talked about this already. And that turned into a lot of much, much easier yeses than if I was just trying to fake it. So, I think fake it till you make it definitely has a place. But for me, at least in the beginning, I found that just saying very honestly, like, I'm starting out, I would love to get your support, that actually helped a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah, I love that. And I just have to ask, I know we're running low on time, so I want to get a couple user or viewer questions in here too. But I was just going to add to basically what you said, Saron, about Sarah asked a question, what are some tips for negotiating if you're an introvert? And it honestly sounds like you kind of just nailed that on the head. And that is, do your homework, do your research, but at the same time, just be honest and be true to yourself. And that seems to be the most key thing. Molly, go ahead, Jennifer, dive in.
Just very short. Okay, if you're an introvert and you have to negotiate, ideally try to get yourself in a position, again, where you're in demand, you're not beholden to anybody, you don't need what they have to offer. Try to do that ahead of time. But then when you're actually there, this is what you say. This is my key phrase. You're going to love it as an introvert. So it's something like, it wouldn't be logical, that's how it begins, it wouldn't be logical for me to accept less for this position than I could make in the private market. Just begin with, it wouldn't be logical, and then just say the thing that they want you to do that you don't want to do. And then
love that.
Pause and say nothing. Say nothing for like 45 seconds and see what happens.
Hold your ground, basically. Is what you're
Like when you're a bridesmaid and they tell you to walk super slowly and it feels really uncomfortable, but it looks good, like it's like that. You just say it wouldn't be logical.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Okay. It wouldn't be logical. We're making sure we're going to send this out to everybody afterward. Perfect. Well, I know we've talked about quite a few topics like business oriented, as far as, profit and determining how you're actually going to make money. Molly asks, do you believe that someone who isn't very business minded can become a successful freelancer? And she has business minded in air quotes here, which I think is rightfully so, but.
Your clients can be people who also don't like business talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think, sure. I think I think that you number one, you just need to be passionate about this thing. So I hate to sort of extrapolate from someone's a third-hand G-chat, but if you're hesitant about being business-minded, and if there's a hesitancy about running a business, plenty of people, it's okay to not have knowledge of spreadsheets, to not sort of know the ins and outs of business. Most people don't. Most people have a particular passion that brought them there. That's not an issue. You could pay a lawyer, you could pay an accountant when you get there. Like, that's fine, right? But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do I care enough about this thing that I'm going to worry about it all the time? In a way that you don't worry about a hobby. So I think that's a really, really key question. And so that's really the key business question you have to ask. Do I really want to worry about this all the time? And people don't worry about hobbies. They worry about businesses. Mm-hmm. So I would ask yourself that.
Oh, I love that. And one more here too. Trisha, for any of the ladies on the panel, thinking back to when you first started out, what is one thing you wished you had done that you didn't know about until further into your career?
You know, I really like the idea from earlier about being authentic and transparent and admitting that you're a beginner, but you also just have to like make friends and be a normal person that people like and like leave your house sometimes or like be really active online. I don't know. But I felt like my first company failed because I was playing CEO. I was like wearing a business suit for no reason. And like, I'm the CEO of this company. It's so fancy. And I feel like it's been such a sea change in the last 10 years. Like now we have Kickstarter. There was no such thing as Kickstarter. Like companies had a product or they didn't. Like they were supposed to invest millions of dollars to make a product before trying to sell it to you. And now people are like, here's a picture of something. Why don't you pay for it? And then I'll make it. That's nice, right? I'm a cool person. Here's a video of me with my kids. That's super normal now. So like go with it. It's an amazing thing.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead. Anybody else wanting?
Yeah,
go
ahead.
So yeah, I think that sometimes when I was younger, and I do this less, although I still kind of fall into it, I think that there are things that you don't want to do, but you do because you feel like there's some greater purpose, right? And sometimes in life you have to do these things, right? And sometimes you don't. And sometimes you look around and you're the only one doing it. And it's like, well, you can ask yourself, what is the greater purpose if I'm the only one that is doing X or Y or Z? So I think that's something to really ask yourself, why are you doing things if you don't want to do them? It's a very powerful question, and you can say no, and you cannot be, because it might get people to think about those projects too. And why are we doing X or Y or Z? So it's a crucial thing.
Yeah, two really quick answers to that. One is I wish I'd invested in my own, in like having a community for me, which is very different from starting a community. Like CodeNewbie is a community I created for other people, but I personally don't know a lot of people who are in my weird position of being like kind of an entrepreneur, but also kind of a community person, but also codes, but like I don't really have a word for what I am. And I don't know a lot of people who are in that same nebulous space. And I really wish I'd invested in finding more people in the same on the same journey, because now I feel like I have to work a lot harder to get answers to questions and to just like not feel alone most of the time. So that's one thing. It's just like investing in like a community where you can just be a member and not have to like run it or lead it. And the second thing is I feel like I spent way too long trusting other people's opinions more than my own. I remember I had this very, very specific conversation with someone who I thought was really awesome and really impressive from kind of far away. And then we actually had a chance to have lunch together. And this person kept saying really dumb things. And I kept thinking, he can't be dumb. Like, it must be like, I just don't understand what's going, like it must be me, like I just kept, like he would say something like, that doesn't really make sense. It's fine. Like I just don't have the context. Like I would just, and then finally I went home to my husband and I said, and I recapped the conversation and I said, the only conclusion I can come up with is maybe he's an idiot. And then the next time we hung out, I had this filter. I was like, maybe he's an idiot. And then I realized, oh my God, he's an idiot. And it was mind blowing. And it just made me think of all the times that I'd listened to people who said like weird things or off things, or didn't make sense. But I just kept saying, oh, well, I'm the new one. I'm the less experienced one. I'm the young one. I'm the whatever. Therefore, like I must be wrong. And just always doubting myself and always giving them the benefit of the doubt. And after that conversation, I stopped doing it. And oh my God, I'm a lot smarter than I thought I was. So not always just deferring, to other people's opinions is something I wish I'd learned a lot sooner.
Oh, I think that is a fabulous way to cap our chat today. And sadly, man, I wish we could just stay and talk more and more, because I think we only scratch the surface on some of these topics. But clearly, you guys have shared so many amazing gems. And I just want to take a moment to thank you all. And everyone, please join me and maybe in the comments as well and show your love and appreciation. Thank Jennifer, Linda, and Saron. I hope you all enjoyed today's webinar as much as I did. I got a ton out of this. And like I said, I'd love to sit and continue to just pick your brains. But on that note, I know we're right at time and you ladies are busy ladies. So I will let you go if you've got to drop off. I'll let you wave goodbye to everybody. And in the meantime, I've got some giveaway details. So I'll let you ladies say goodbye.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. We're so glad, so appreciative to have had you. So, all right. And on that note, let's go ahead. A little bit of excitement here. It's time to announce our winner, our giveaway winner. So I would love to take a moment to congratulate Daniela Hernandez on winning a spot in the All Access Career Blueprint. Congratulations, Daniela. So ultimately, thank you so much again for attending this webinar. If you are not already aware of what our All Access Blueprint is, I'd love to just maybe share a couple minutes with you if you'd like. Ultimately, this is our career capstone program. And as a reminder, it's a coach guided roadmap to get you from where you are right now to a new career in tech. And it includes full access to every single current Skill Crush class we offer. That's every single one. A personalized learning plan and one-on-one career coaching every step of the way. There'll be special milestone projects to help you build up an outstanding portfolio, a thriving student community, as we heard the value of that today over and over, and a ton of resources like career guides, master classes, and even more. And just a reminder, we have 2 more of these all access blueprints to give away. So continue to tweet your takeaways and share share the hashtag Big Payoff with your favorite takeaways, thoughts, insights from today and all of the other webinars. And on that note, I just want to introduce that this really is possible. I hope all of the ladies that joined us today showcased that, but I wanted to give you one more chance to meet a Skill Crush alum, and this is Rachel. Rachel, after spending a couple of years learning tech skills while she worked as a French teacher, she decided to actually make the switch to working for an agency. And ultimately, after 6 months at that agency, they lost their biggest client, which meant that Rachel got laid off. Ultimately, big, devastating news to get, but that same day, and I love how she shares this story, she actually went to go get her eyebrows done because, as she put it, what else would you do when you just got terrible news? But went to go get her eyebrows done and actually talked to her esthetician about the skills she was learning and the things she's doing and the fact that she just lost her job, and she actually landed her very first web design client, her esthetician. So now Rachel actually runs a really successful web design and development consultancy. So it's, again, just proof that there is an opportunity out there to put your own mix, or to put your own mark on tech and your own mark on your skills and setting them forward and building a path that you're truly, truly excited about. So on that oh my gosh, on that note, I'm just super excited about everything today. On that note, keep the conversation going by tweeting your favorite takeaways and quotes from today's webinar using hashtag Big Payoff. And thank you again to Jennifer, Linda, and Saron, and thank you all for attending. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern to cover the lifestyle perks of a tech career in our Beyond the Paycheck webinar. You definitely don't want to miss it. So I can't wait to see you all there, and we will see you then. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.